Welcome to Face to Face. This is a show about change and what's next. It's a show that asks questions and peels back the layers of our average everyday experience and goes beyond scratching the surface. We interview people doing incredible things who are making a difference around the globe. Join me as we listen in and get one step closer to understanding that big ideas shared create collaboration. Collaboration can inspire community, and communities create social change. I'm David Peck, and this is Face to Face.
So my next guest is Kyle Thrash, and we are talking about his compelling and moving and deeply unsettling new film, The Sentence of Michael Thompson. Ultimately quite hopeful, as you're going to find out. It's a short that had its Texan premiere at the South by Southwest Film Festival in the not-so-distant past, and hopefully will be coming to a festival and eventually to VOD in the not-so-distant future. This is a movie you're going to need to see, and I do hope you enjoy the conversation that Kyle and I have. And we talk about social justice, we talk about injustice, we talk about a criminal system that is deeply impersonal. And some of you might sort of roll your eyes, well, isn't that what it's supposed to be? And I think you're going to need to listen in and find out why things like why it's so hard to get clemency, why it's so political, why clemency is based on convenience. We talk about lawyers that are superheroes and tragic ironies. We talk about Michael and his life and how he's been able to hang on to, something called hope. We talk about a messy criminal system that is, again, seems to be slanted towards a particular way of seeing the world that is unjust and broken. It's dysfunctional and in many cases deeply ideological. We talk about something called the lastprisonerproject.org. Actually, that's the website, but hopefully that'll help you remember it forevermore. But it's the Last Prisoner Project, and the website is that phrase.org. Find out about the implications of this and this film, this story, Michael's story, and its impact, and how you might be able to get involved. We talked about Michael's strength of character and his tenacity and his humility and his ability to carry on and to see and live his life through others. We talked about safe communities and what that actually means, and about this notion of washing your heart. How wonderful is that? So stay tuned, not only for the conversation, but we're going to watch the trailer together as well. And for more about the work that I'm doing here on Face to Face, head to face2facelive.ca or davidpecklive.com. It's really the same place. And you can buy a copy of my book, Real Change is Incremental, there. More importantly, I'd love for you to sign up for our newsletter, sign up for our podcast where you listen to podcasts. Wherever you do that, subscribe on your RSS feed. And please, if you get a moment, we would so appreciate a review. Take a few minutes to leave us a review on iTunes or Spotify or wherever it is you're hanging out on the net these days. YouTube, if you're watching us there, you can give us a thumbs up and subscribe as well. We would really appreciate that. And stay tuned for a engaging conversation with Kyle, talking about his new film, The Sentence of Michael Thompson. Well, welcome to Face to Face. We are joined by a very special guest here with us today. We have Kyle Thrash with us to talk about his compelling new short, The Sentence of Michael Thompson, here on Face to Face. Kyle, thanks for taking the time to spend with us here today.
Yeah, thanks for having me, David.
So co-director Haley Elizabeth Anderson, we can find more out about you and the film at kylethrash.com. Is that right?
Correct.
We can watch a little teaser there.
Yeah. I have a little teaser trailer up there and some stills about the film and lastprisonerproject.com, to learn more about the sentiment of the film and the nonprofit that kind of started it. Behind the story.
Kyle, what's the name of that nonprofit again?
The lastprisonerproject.com.
The lastprisonerproject.com. Thanks. We'll make sure we highlight that as well on the site. So coming off of South by Southwest, I hope you're feeling a little bit of a buzz. What can you tell me about this film for our viewers? It's a short, of course. Wow. I mean, first of all, congratulations. And thanks for making this film. It's compelling and moving. I was reduced to tears a couple of times. How can you not be changed as a result of hearing this man's story? Can you give a bit of context for our listeners?
Yeah. So Michael Thompson was given a 42 to 60 year life sentence in 1994 for selling 3 pounds of cannabis. He was given that sentence because he was considered a habitual offender. He had been in prison twice before for drug charges, but one of the things that they did was they found a gun in his house, and because he had been incarcerated before, he wasn't allowed to have any guns. It was not on him during the sale of the cannabis. He sold the cannabis to his friend, who was a police informant, and he was given this extremely long sentence. At the time, the judge wanted to give him, or there was a plea deal on the table, but the judge for probation. So you look at the sentence that he was given, 42 to 60 years, and he could have gotten probation. Judge denied it. She wanted to make an example out of him, and he was sentenced in 1996, and it's really a sentence of the time. It's something that during that period with the 3 strikes you're out rule that was put in by Clinton and Joe Biden had a big part of in creating. They basically wanted to kind of lock him up and throw away the key for a nonviolent charge, based off of his previous convictions. Again, the gun wasn't on him. They call that constructive possession when they find a gun somewhere else, and the prosecutor at the time tried to make it look like, he was this guy that had all these guns and was out there selling drugs and was violent, which was not the case at all. So Michael had been denied his clemency twice before, and this was his last chance at clemency. So I got involved with Michael's story through Last Prisoner Project. They're a nonprofit that basically says, as weed begins to legalize around this country, that there are a ton of people still incarcerated for it, mostly nonviolent, over 40,000 people, that we need to look at them and make sure that they don't get left behind and are granted clemency and are also given some social equity when it comes to licenses and are be able to partake in this legal cannabis, considering they're the ones that kind of built this industry. So our journey starts with Michael's clemency process. I started talking to him in January 2020, got to know Michael, got to know his story. We connected on our first phone call, and our journey follows him through the year of the clemency process, talking through the lens of his daughter, who's fighting for him, and his lawyer, Kim, who's trying to get him out. And it's a 25-minute film kind of about looking at what it takes to get a man out of prison, and also as weed begins to legalize, what are some of the steps forward that we can take, and a bit of how we got here. But obviously the war on drugs has lasted for decades, so it's something that we're kind of just trying to keep it a short film that kind of just talks about his clemency application, and kind of, again, legalization moving forward. So yeah, that's our film.
Michael, I mean, so many questions, so many places to go with this, and the outrage as you watch a film like this and you see Michael on screen and at his parole hearing. For me, the line of the whoever was running that Zoom call, and Kim calls it out, hey, let's keep it to 5 minutes each person. Like, I mean, obviously a very intentional choice on your part to leave that in the film. I mean, the absurdity, the tragic irony of that. How do we hold the system account? Can we even hold the system account? The three strikes you're out rule, the presupposition and the assumptions that are made, going in, the prosecutor or whoever decided to put the gun with the marijuana in the photos. I mean, what's communicated through that? I mean, all these things.
Right.
Can we hold these folks to account, or the system in some way? And I guess that's what you're kind of asking with this film beautifully. I mean, there's so many things going on in the film, but anyway, I just wondered if you had some thoughts on that. I mean, I come away from watching the film kind of angry.
Yeah, it's a it obviously has some has a positive resolution at the end, in terms of the ending. But the people the powers that be have a lion's share of the blame of why Michael spent 26 years incarcerated for this particular offense. And what I found pretty powerful was, in the film we see Dana Nessel, the acting attorney general of Michigan, come out and support his clemency, something she hasn't done before. And that was like, when you're making a film, you're trying to you're trying to help Michael, then also kind of, following his story as a as a journalist and as a documentarian. Seeing things like that happen are so meaningful, because it's showing you that that their office is basically saying, hey, we agree with you, like this is not who we are now. And you see the prosecutor David Layton on camera speaking, and he was in the office, he was working for the state at the time. I don't think he was in the prosecutor's office, but basically saying that these crimes today, he wouldn't right. He would barely get jail time today. So basically saying, like, we have moved on from this, we have changed. And so that was really powerful, to see that these people in power in Michigan basically saying, like, we're trying to recognize this now. How, yes, with Michael they have, but it took tens of thousands of people writing letters, making phone calls, trying to gain their attention. When we met with David Layton, and again, I just gave him a lot of praise, but at the same time, he was like, oh, well, I didn't know about this until Kim started calling my office. Meanwhile, his name is on a bunch of the old papers. Right, so like, right. He was involved back then, and he knew the parties. Now, how many people come through his door and what he remembers, is who can say? But
it just strikes me as so and it's easy to point fingers, I get it, but it just strikes me as so transactional. Where is the person in the prosecution? Where's the person in the system? And again, this is a bigger question. My son's reading 1984 right now. I mean, a massive critique of the ideological impact of the big system, right? What does it actually mean to us on the ground? But here we're seeing it play out. Right. And is, wow, it's as if the key was thrown away. Okay, right. We're done with Michael. Boom, we got that one finished. Let's move on to somebody else. And I sort of get that in a way, but there's a big part of me that just I have trouble coming to terms with that it took this many years, to see a resolution, a clemency given.
Yeah, yeah. And again, that when you look at Michael's case and you feel that way, there's also, again, there's so many cases like Michael's.
40,000, as you point out.
Yeah. So the fact that that's the way you feel about this, and like, you go to lastprisonerproject.com and you see so many other constituents that they're working with that have such similar stories. It's troubling, just to put it mildly. And I think the difficult part of what I was trying to show, what you mentioned with the time and just that Kim couldn't get through to their parole board for so long that it's just like, it's so messy in terms of the criminal justice system, in terms of how slow it goes. And it's just like this long slog. So I think that sometimes you need to have these campaigns of people writing letters, making phone calls to gain their attention, just on something for them to be like, oh wow, yeah, this is wrong. How did we forget about this person? And there's just people in prison that they forget about. Michigan has the oldest prison population in the country, and studies show that people age out of crime. So Michael, when he was released, was 69 years old. This isn't someone that was, ever a danger to society, and wasn't someone that, especially at that age, he could have been released decades ago. And that's what David Layton says. He's saying, like, looking at Michael's case, this isn't someone that we feel like is a threat to our community. So why isn't he out of prison? And still, even then, when you get all of this praise, right? So Michael's in prison and he's hearing the attorney general, the prosecutor, David Layton, is on his side supporting his clemency application, it's still taking 3 months, 6 months, and he's still waiting, being like, that was 6 months ago. What's going on? Why are we,
Sure.
and just to get a parole hearing date, again, it was COVID and things were backed up, but it's just such a slog. And that's what we try to show. And that, I mean, you can imagine what every day is like being incarcerated. I mean, it's 6 months waiting is an eternity.
Was it Bianca who says, it's so beautiful that you left this in the film, but hope is your number? Is that the line?
Hope is your number.
The lottery sequence talking about that expectation that just sitting there waiting to see, and it's just so beautiful. How does a guy like Michael, how does Kim, how does anyone stay hopeful in this kind of a situation? And I'm so glad you've aligned yourself with the lastprisonerproject.com, but also just that quick shout out about writing letters, about advocacy. I mean, it's worth rolling up your sleeves and stepping in.
Yeah, we spoke to the Michigan Cannabis Caucus, and they talked about how hard it is to get clemency. Like, they just don't do it. And what's really troubling is that a lot of times it's for political reasons, right? Like the governor, it's like governors usually don't grant clemency to people until they are at the end of their term. Like, they don't want to risk
political capital involved.
Exactly. Like no risk at all. So like, think about that. Like, they know that people should get out, but they're like, let's do it when it's convenient for us, like when it's convenient for us to look good. So Kim, his lawyer, is obviously, I think she's such a superhero, and and is kind of this incredible person that is working on so many cases, and is working on the Michael Thompson Clemency Project right now, where Michael is, since he's been working on trying to get 13 other people out of prison that he was incarcerated with, and Kim's working on that with him. And she was down at South by with us, and she had just lost a really big case on the Friday, and I was seeing her on Sunday, and I see her, trying to celebrate kind of this beautiful, we're there with Michael. It's beautiful. We're all together, but she's just like, it's so hard for me because I just lost this case that was like so cut and dry. And it's hard. I'm kind of like, I'm in the, I'm on the sidelines, just kind of watching, and she's playing the game. She's in there trying to get so many people that are wrongfully, that have these long sentences and should be out. And she loses hope a lot. And so I think it's cyclical, right? Like, you have these good things and you feel good for one day, or for a little bit of time, and then you kind of get brought back down when you hear another decision from a judge denying something. So
it just hit me, Kim as a superhero, and I thought of the byline or log line, lawyers as superheroes. You don't typically hear that about lawyers. Is there just not really that much incentive, other than, of course, the ethical human reasons for getting involved in something like this? Is it hard to make a living? Can you comment on that? I mean, I just like to encourage lawyers out there that maybe there's room for some growth here, be a little too mercenary. I don't know. Maybe that's just too mercenary, but boy, you'd like to see more involved.
Sure. Yeah. I can't say I can really speak to like all lawyers, but I can speak to Kim. So Kim got brought on, I believe, because Kim Kardashian gave her money. So
wow.
Kim Kardashian, I believe, gave different law offices money to take on particular cases. And because of that, Kim was brought on for, a small fee to look after Michael's clemency application. So, she attributes that, and Michael attributes that to kind of helping. But yeah, there's no money in getting Michael out of prison.
Right.
Michael, like, Michael didn't have any money to do anything, so like he couldn't hire someone like him. So it takes other people, that people stepping up to kind of help.
I think it's so
Um,
ironic, and I don't know who it was. It might have been David the lawyer, but talked about the safety of the community. I mean,
mhm,
isn't that what eventually leads to Michael getting out? It's that community of people who cared,
right,
who were
sure,
willing to step in, who were
hmm
willing to write the letters to, to the oh man, the moment of the cell phone call with Kim, and I forget the other woman's name, but talking about getting put on hold and not being able to get through, to the parole board and so on. Just these little bits of business that just
hmm
treat me like a human being, for crying out loud. Like,
yeah,
how hard does this have to be?
yeah. I mean, when you're speaking about community, um, and you brought up that the moment about the timing at the parole hearing, more people, they had said more people showed up to that public hearing than they had ever seen in history. Like
Wow.
it was incredible. So many people coming to speak out about Michael's sentence, and wanting to get their voice heard, and saying that this was an injustice, which I think just speaks volumes to Michael's story and the injustice at hand, and how it resonated for so many people to want to take time to come and speak out. That yeah, the amount of time everyone is usually given is 5 minutes, and it was cut to 2 minutes, and you hear these people saying, like, one person says, I'm 25 years old, so this sentence is like my whole life. It's like can't even
Life.
calculate, like can't even comprehend.
It's incomprehensible, right? It's
Right,
like,
right,
who was it? I think it was some a Chinese president years ago said, the death of a million people is a statistic, but the death of one person sort of matters. I mean, that's a horrible paraphrase, but at a
right.
certain point, you get beyond a number and you go, I don't even know what that means anymore. 26
Sure,
years.
sure.
Michael's quote, I can't believe this. Today, it feels like I'm in a dream, but I'm happy it's finally over. Like, there's a generosity there that almost makes me want to break down in tears. That this man was able to overcome so many odds that you and I will, and challenges that we'll never know, hopefully, in any
Yeah,
way, shape, or form. And
right.
it's truly, truly mind-boggling. I'm fascinated by his hope and his desire and the passion of this community for something else and something other.
Yeah. So, obviously, so much of what we're talking about here is kind of the injustice that was given, and what makes it worth talking about, and worth
Worth
putting
making a film about.
worth making a film about, worth putting a microscope to, and trying to understand, how did this happen? How is this still happening? What can we do to get him out? But then let's talk about the type of man Michael was, of what you were just saying. I mean, here's a man that uh, was a community leader. Was someone that was looking after his family. Michael grew up in Michigan. He was raised pretty poorly, and had a pretty tough upbringing, and he always wanted his family to have more than what he had, and the community loved him. He was someone that people liked
Kyle,
him
didn't he
around
get the
town.
key to the city?
Yeah, so he led a gang walk. He brought all these guys together and saying, we need to work together here, and led a gang walk in Flint. Was given the key to the city by the mayor. Was given an NAACP award. I mentioned his previous offense. He was working at GM. When he got back, they liked him so much they gave him his job back right again. I mean, this is someone that he has incredible character, and speaking to him, and what you were just saying about kind of what someone has to go through. I mean, while he was also incarcerated, he led a men's group where men would come and speak about their feelings, and he would talk about washing. It would come and wash your heart, and he would say that there wasn't a lot of space for that in that type of environment, for these men to come and speak. And he said he would sometimes just hug these younger men, and it's almost be like a parental figure to them, and say it's okay. And he said his friend spoke to me on the phone about, he's like, I've never seen anything like this before or after this, man. It was like these guys would come and be able to speak about their trauma and what they've gone through. And Michael was kind of creating a space for that. When George Floyd was murdered, Michael led a memorial luncheon for him, for anyone that was in prison to come and speak and be able to express themselves about what happened. This is incredible. Just someone that was always kind of, leading and gathering and
stayed positive, found meaning through others.
Yes. And wanting to kind of be a source of guidance. Yeah. So it just
I don't know how you don't go cynical.
Right.
I would imagine the spiral downwards can come pretty quickly behind bars.
Well, our phone calls definitely varied in emotion. There'd be days where we would talk. It was all through COVID, so we would have these long conversations and short 15-minute phone call restrictions that we would have. And they ranged from talking about how he loved fishing and how he loved tomatoes was his favorite thing to eat, to how could someone who murdered someone come into prison and be let out before me, right? Like anger, just like, how could the judge give me such a long sentence when I'm seeing these people that have hurt people, that have committed serious acts of violence, come in and out of prison while I'm still here for selling cannabis.
It makes no sense at all. There's a line at the end of the film, and I don't know who it is, but referring to this gateway, this drug is really a gateway to mass incarceration. And I haven't heard the phrase war on drugs. Being Canadian, we don't hear it quite as often for sure. But at the same time, it's something that's, pretty present in the news, or has been certainly. It's a little surprising to me that we're in the 21st century and we're still, working through this issue. Can you talk a little bit, as we get closer to wrapping up our time together here today, a little bit about that as we, finish up?
Cannabis is still arrested at a rate than more all violent crime combined in the US. So it is still, as states, deschedule and decriminalize, and some become, legal recreationally, across the US, people are still being caught with weed. We spoke to a police officer that basically was saying, like, we were told, do whatever it takes to get inside that car when they're pulling people over.
Interesting.
So, again, consent searches, all they need to do is say that they smell it. If they assume that it's there, that they begin to, get inside that car. So we spoke to Flint police officers and people and Michigan State police officers and county police officers that basically was saying that weed was a tool basically in their tool belt to go after people, and now it's not. And that took some time, where people were, sometimes they'd still arrest people when it was legal and say, let the courts figure it out, because when it was just medically legal and not legal recreationally. So it's obviously been used as a tool to target communities of color, to get people in the system and to keep them there. So obviously I'm hoping, hopefully what we're going towards is weed being legalized federally, which would then obviously end most of this. And then again, we need to put the foundation in place for, as these communities that have been so devastated by the war on drugs, that they're able to receive some money that's coming in from the legal cannabis industry to kind of help put these communities back together.
It really is quite remarkable. I just want to read, I'm pretty sure I got the right page here, lastprisonerproject.org. The homepage is Change in green, which is lovely. Change is coming, fighting criminal injustice and reimagining drug policy. It's remarkable that it can be so top down and so bottom up. You got the safety, you got the community working to get him out. You've got maybe a politician, a lawyer, judges working on language. Whoever decided war on drugs, right? Using that kind of language, what a difference that's made It seems to me, and it sounds like we're arguing about insignificant things, but really it comes down to policy. It comes down to the little bits of business. It comes down to picking up the phone and treating other people like human beings, transformational versus transactional. And you know what? I just so love that. I love any film that gets me thinking about so many different issues, and it's again, Kyle, congratulations on the film. And can we just wrap up by talking about kind of that last image, welcome home? I mean, isn't that really what it's all about? Not just for Michael, but for you and I and all of us. Aren't we really, am I too much of an idealist here to say, isn't this why I do what I do with my podcasting and my interviews, is about finding our way back home in some way, finding a place where we're welcome, where we're included, where we're loved, and so on. And I just thought it was such a beautiful way to end the film.
Oh, well, thanks for saying that. I agree with you. And I think, for Michael, it was, we start the film obviously with his granddaughter, who's pregnant and is basically going to have, his great grandson. And the idea that he's missed so much of their lives. So to see all of them together in the generations, right? We're seeing these kids run around, and he hasn't seen these people in some that he hasn't met before. So just to see everyone in the same room and to think about how this one sentence has kind of like like how you puncture a window, right? And it splinters. It's splintered through all of their family, right? This sentence,
huge.
Yeah, and how it's impacted all of these. Again, a lot of these like extremely strong Black women that are that it's impacted them so much. And just seeing all of them together and these extremely resilient, strong people, I'm glad it had an impact on you, because it definitely had an impact on me.
Well, you made a very beautiful film about an incredibly tragic story that ultimately is super, super hopeful and rewarding. Early on in the film, doesn't someone say, and I think it's his daughter, blessings always come on time. Is that right?
Yes, that's his granddaughter. Yeah.
His granddaughter. Yeah. I feel like, well, okay, it took 26 years, but you know what? It's not just about that. The impact of this is I hope and trust, Kyle, it's going to be global. It's a beautiful film. We've been talking with Kyle Thrash today here about his new film, The Sentence of Michael Thompson. Check it out online, thelastprisonerproject.org, for more information about how you can get involved. But KyleThrash.com. Where are you heading next, Kyle, with the film?
Next up, we have the Atlanta Film Festival. We'll be there. We'll be at the Athens Film Festival. Wow. And River Run Festival. Yes, those are the next three up on the docket.
Fantastic. I hope we can fast forward a few years, and I hope students are writing essays about this. I hope this changes policy, man. Seriously, it's incremental change. Sure, it's top down, it's bottom up too. And I love that you're engaging. I hope so many people through this brilliant story.
Thanks, David. Yeah, I encourage your listening audience to check out lastprisonerproject.com. If there is a screening that happens, that if they're able to go to any of these festivals, we'll continue to post on KyleThrash.com, and there will be a website created, thesentenceofmichaelthompson.com. We'll have a website for where they can go. Michael will be at a lot of these screenings, which is amazing. It's extremely powerful to kind of see him at these screenings and speak about his experiences. So I'm hoping some of your listening audience can hopefully come out.
Absolutely. You never know who's listening, and I hope somebody's working on a screenplay.
That would be great. I'm sure Michael would love that.
Oh wow, that's a story to tell. Kyle, thanks for your time today. We've enjoyed chatting with Kyle Thrash here today, talking about his beautiful new film, The Sentence of Michael Thompson.
Thanks, David.
So there you have it. Interesting, engaging. I hope you feel the same way. Conversation with Kyle Thrash about his compelling new film, The Sentence of Michael Thompson. Make sure you check out his site, but also thelastprisonerproject.org. Check out how you can step in and work towards, roll up your sleeves. Hopefully your sleeves are already rolled up to advocate, to write letters, to get involved in some way, to make a difference in a very specific way. For more information about the work that I do, davidpecklive.com, facetofacelive.ca. Sign up for the newsletter. Find out more about what I do, speak, and the interviews and the events that I'm a part of. And also, please leave us a review online. We would so appreciate that. iTunes or Spotify. And don't forget to subscribe to our podcast wherever you listen to podcasts. And it's been a real pleasure having Kyle on the show this week. So many more great interviews coming up with Hot Docs in the near future. We've got TIFF in the not so distant future. Lots coming up. And it's been great being with you here today on Face to Face.